Back here for another relaxing evening with my comfort synth Pigments. I meant to have this in play mode because it's prettier that way. And I call it my comfort synth because I have so much fun playing with it. But today I'm moving into less comfortable territory because I'm going to try to do some stuff with this Harmonic Engine, which is quite a bit different really than any other synthesis I've played with before. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in this engine, but I welcome you to join me as I explore it a little bit tonight. Let me show you some of the things that this patch is doing. I'm going to start with the effects because I use some different effects this time. I use the tape echo, that's not too different. I use the reverb, that's standard. So the PS delay, which I presume means pitch shifting delay. I'm just going to crank that all the way up and turn off these others. So I'm having a bit of fun with that. Let me slow it down some. Turn down the spray. Maybe less of the pitch shift. So that's pretty fun. I don't know that I've had one of those to play with before. And now I'm going to turn it off too, so we can just listen to the synth. So this is an additive synthesizer. The other additive synthesizer that I have experience with is Serum. And I guess Serum is not really an additive synthesizer, because even though you can build your wavetables by drawing in the different harmonics, it's still a wavetable synth at the end of the day. And that means you can't stretch or detune those harmonics, which I'm pretty sure we can do with this. Now, I didn't read anything in the tutorial that specifically said your partials will be inharmonic, but this certainly sounds like it to me. I wonder, I turned those effects off, right? Yeah. So that's just the engine making those echoey kind of tones. Oh, and that's why it does it. Because you can see in the display some of the partials are like appearing out of nowhere from right to left in the... It's not a waveform. What do we call this? In the partial display. And so when the partial pops in out of nowhere, it kind of sounds like an echo. And that's probably something I would want to avoid, but maybe that's just a thing that happens with this engine, and I'll just deal with it. Use it for its cool effect rather than try to make it go away. I wonder if I sampled this, if this would actually make a good spring reverb impulse response. It might. It's a little tonal. I'd have to maybe dirty it up somehow a little bit. I like this sound right now. I'm just going to save this real quick. So where to even begin talking about this engine here? I guess I'm going to start with this cluster section because that's what I've already been playing with. It does this. So if you use this position to push these clusters further up in the frequency range, kind of preserve more of your fundamental, and maybe that'll get crazier with the weird inharmonic metallic tones. I should change that. But first I'll show you what it is. I've got the function. This is modulating the pitch of the harmonic. So when I play the note, it jumps to the right pitch really quick, and then it slowly drops off when you let go of the note. But it's not dropping off as far as I want it to, and I think that's because my envelope release is longer than this function release. So if I just make this longer, see what it's doing is it comes down to the end and then it stays at this pitch, which doesn't sound right. I want it to dissolve into nothing as it falls. So I'm going to shorten the amp envelope. Release. I think I want both releases to be longer, so I'll just double the size of this one again. I haven't learned all the buttons yet. I keep clicking the wrong things. No, I definitely want a convex shape to that. And maybe I'll just have it go even farther. Now let's just see what other modulations I have going on. It's nice, I like this in Pigments, that it shows me which modulators are doing work. So envelope 2 is going to the spectrum morph. So that's what that does. The amp envelope is just doing the amp. Keyboard is probably just doing voice panning. Velocity, I think, is doing a few things. Nope, just the filter. Or more accurately, the envelope that is controlling the filter. Okay, I guess it's a simpler sound than I thought it was. In terms of modulations anyways, whatever's going on in this engine here is kind of crazy and not very simple. I guess that wasn't very relaxing. Sorry. Okay, so I think I'm going to start a new patch and build something from scratch here. I will be revealing some ignorance as we do so, because this whole synthesis style here is still very new to me. But in compensation for my ignorance, you get to experience my immeasurable enthusiasm, because it's not every day that you run across something that is so entirely new. If my immeasurable enthusiasm sounds a bit muted, I have been playing with this for a few days, so I'm not completely in awe of it, but I would not go so far as to say that I understand it. Okay, so fresh harmonic. I'm gonna go to my favorite matrix filter, although I'm probably not really going to use the filter much, at least at the beginning. Okay, let's see what we start with here. Ah, that's terrible. I hate it. Alright, I'm going to crank down the filter a bit. I think what we have here is basically a sawtooth. Evenly distributed partials. So each of these lines in this display here represents a partial, which is a sine wave, and when you add all those sine waves together you get your sound, and that's why this is additive synthesis. Now we can adjust the number of partials. So all the way down to 0. We just have our one fundamental sine wave. And as I bring this up, we'll get our octave, then octave plus a fifth, and then whatever the next one is. And those can go up to, we can have 512 of those. We can hear them all if I turn off the filter. Maybe we can't hear the highest ones if we go down a couple octaves. So far I've found having between 20 and 30 partials is pretty good for my purposes. So this is kind of like having a filter on your sawtooth, except it's a very, very, very steep filter that cuts off instantly, rather than the normal 12 or 24 decibel roll off. So if we didn't want to use a filter, we could modulate these partials instead. And it is kind of a filtery sort of sound. Okay, this sound isn't super interesting at the moment, so let's do some things to it. We have all these controls down here affected in various different ways. The distribution and the amplitude of the partials. I'll start by looking at this periodic thing. This is the partial modulation mode. And what does that mean? I've started reading these down at the bottom here. When you roll over something, it'll give you a description of what it does, which sometimes helps. And this is the imaging mode. So this section here is really about the stereo field and what it's going to do. So I guess this periodic mode just divides the partials into chunks and then pans them left and right. And I guess left and right are reflected in this display here. And we have a couple ways to do that. The random one's kind of cool because it's, as you can see, it's animated there. And what's the third thing? Split. Split is going to send the odd harmonics and the even harmonics into different ears. And that's a thing that's, there are a couple other places where you can, maybe this parity knob, where you can do different things with the even versus the odd partials. It's very much kind of just a cool thing you can do. It's not, I don't think, going to be very, very helpful if you're trying to emulate a particular natural sound. But I have no intention of doing such a thing anyway, so. At least not today, and not with this engine. Part of what I'm enjoying about Pigments is I'm just making kind of wild, synthetic sounds for the most part, and not really aiming towards a particular thing, a particular instrument like I did in my, that's what I end up doing a lot in my Surge XT tutorials, so it's nice to get away from that. Okay, so I'm not going to do a lot with this stereo field thing. Now we can run this through different comb filters. Different kinds of combs. They're all combs. They just have, you know, widerly spaced teeth and whatnot. Some of the teeth are longer than the others. We can morph between two shapes. So right now I'm working with the one on the left. And you need to turn up this depth here or you're not going to hear any effect. But now we get a nice little display of our comb. Let's go with this one for now. And these are all just going to knock away some partials depending on where those partials fall in this shape. And you can move it around too. You can move this shaper comb around with the tilt control. If I give us more partials, we can hear more of that. And there's the offset, which can also move it in a different way. So there we can get a little bit of a high-pass filter kind of effect. I'm going for synthesizer analogies because I can't think of any real-world thing that would do this. except the voice of some animal, maybe. Like I could do that if I wanted to. Yeah. And that is one thing I like about this engine. We can get some kind of vocalization sounds out of it, if not quite a voice. But I'm going to morph to the other one that I like is the move. I'll morph to that. So I think that this move shape is good for voices. And of course the shape's going to be a good thing to morph. So I'm going to put it down here, and I'm just going to give it some modulation wheel modulation. And I'm controlling the modulation with my handy foot pedal. Okay, I actually want this to go the other direction. I like the foot pedal as modulation wheel because then I get to keep two hands on the keyboard. I don't like the foot pedal because I have a hard time finding a good place for it where I can reach it with my foot easily. But that's what you get for having stuff all over your floor. Let's see what else we can do here. My depth, I'm going to turn the depth all the way up. I don't know why I didn't have it all the way up. Do I have a modulation on that? No. Okay. And now here's some of that effect that I mentioned earlier of the partials just suddenly disappearing or reappearing, which can sound like an echo. Oh, that's a cool sound. I like that. There's a whole sound just performed on the foot pedal. Pardon me while I save this. This is cool. I want to come back to this. I have to save a lot with this one because I don't know what anything does, so I might not be able to reproduce it. Got some throat singing going on here. That was really cool. I like that. And I think the only other thing, so what does section do? I'm not sure what section does. Selects which part of the spectrum will be used. So the spectrum, I think, refers to that whole display of notes, or partials that we get. And again, we're getting some not smooth modulation here. So this would be really great, I think, for some textured drones. So let's give some modulation to this section here. I'll just put it on an LFO. Might not want it to be so much. I'm not sure that I would use that. It's sounding kind of cool. I'm going to leave it in at least for the moment, since I don't have any specific plans for this sound. I'm going to take the keyboard and use it to modulate my voice pan like I usually do, but also the rate of this LFO. Which LFO am I using? I'm using LFO 1, okay. So I'm going to use the keyboard to modulate the rate of LFO 1 a bit. Turn it up some. Okay, I'm now not liking this. Maybe I'll just modulate just a little bit. Nah, not gonna do it. This was working better with fewer partials. Maybe. Okay, I got my throat singers back. I'm saving the most exciting sections for last. That would be the window and the phase mod. Let's start with the phase mod because it's going to be a little more familiar. This is basically an FM. I'm not going to get into the whole explanation of the difference between phase mod and frequency mod because I'm unqualified to explain that. Now, I believe this is getting its modulation from the modulator, and the modulator is this wave who's being tuned to this ratio, and this ratio is this ratio here. They're both the same ratio. Maybe? Well, this is a multiplier of this other ratio. I'm only going to use one ratio right now just to keep things simple. And I'm assuming that this ratio is just a multiple of our fundamental frequency at whatever pitch we're playing. So I find this most interesting when it's below 1. I find it really nice. This kind of it locks into the important frequencies that you might want. Sure, the harmonic frequencies like 1.5, 0.25, 2, 3. So you can get in between values, but it's going to make it easy for you to turn the knob to the whole ratios. Now, if this was like a DX7, then I would think that this ratio of 2.67, let's do 2.37. I would think this would sound more inharmonic. And it does sound a little inharmonic. Maybe if I turn up this amount. Yeah, that's a very DX7 kind of sound. So that's cool to have. It's not really it's not exciting me as much anymore because that's something I already know about and it's not new to this engine. But let's see what the frequency mod does. It's kind of the same thing, just a little different style. And if we come back over to the modulator, we can do different types of waves. And, what's blue noise? We don't usually see blue noise. I've seen red noise, I've seen pink, I've seen brown, and violet, and white, of course. Did I say red? I don't know if I've seen red, but I've certainly never seen blue. What's that like? Whatever it is subtle. Let's try the red noise. Well, there we go. Do I have a white noise here just for reference? Yes. So I guess blue is like an even gentler white noise. Okay, it's that, I guess. There's some blue noise for you. So this section is not super exciting to me, but it is going to be very useful. I have already made use of it. I turn this down to 0.5. I like a good 0.5 ratio. Gives us, I'll go back to the sine wave. Ratios lower than 1 give you some subharmonics, which are kind of cool. Oh, it went into the negative territory. That's interesting. So it's a through 0 FM. Maybe I'm not remembering how that works. But it did go through 0. I would turn that down and get my throat singer back. Okay, and now we come to the last really cool section, noting that we haven't really put much effort into getting a sound that we can do anything in particular with. But once we get we'll get a basic tone and then shape it from there. So we have different modes here. We have the window, cluster, and the shepard. And the cluster has been my favorite so far, so I'll save that one for last. Window, we are very much in territory that I don't understand. So the position chooses the partial for which the window is located. The window size is probably just, how many partials on either side. So it's going to turn up whatever partials are in that window. And it's going to use frequency modulation to, I guess, only modulate the partials that are in that window. Seems simple enough. And we have this light gray area indicating which partials are going to be affected. And the window position, it seems like a natural candidate for modulation. Let's assign the LFO 1 to it. And instead of the gain, let's FM this, which I presume is also FM coming from this modulator. Let's confirm that by switching this to the noise. Yep, it's coming from the modulator. Now let me check on this, can I? Okay, so we can use the modulator here. We can also use engine 2, or whichever other engine is available. So that opens some more possibilities. So yeah, that's the window. Let's look at the shepard. I kind of know what shepard does, but I haven't really played with it yet because it didn't seem super interesting. So the shepard tones are the ones where Sounds like it's continuously rising because it'll like have a notch filter or a bandpass filter or something that is going up through the frequencies, and then it will like mix in another one at the starting point, and it will also rise up, so that there's just this constant uplifting sound going on. So let's see what happens here. Okay, I have no idea what this phi is. It says shepard phi. I wonder if that's a pun. That's the position of the partial between its original and n+1. What the hell is n? This sounds like this could be doing some fractal things for us. Now I don't know how the tone is spelled. Is it shepherd like a guy who watches sheep, or shepherd like the astronaut? Either way, this isn't doing what I expected it to do. And I don't really understand what it is doing. So I guess I'm just going to leave that a mystery for another day. It is cool. Everything about this is cool. Things I understand and the things that I don't. But I'm going to go to the cluster because that one's my favorite. So we have the position, which is the partial. Same idea as with the window. The number of partials in each cluster. It's going to be like window size, I think. Although I'm not sure, this might generate new partials for us. Clusters are the number of clusters inside the window. That sounds like it's going to make us new partials. And the density is the distance between the partials. This is my favorite parameter. Also, randomness to phase. I'm not sure what that means, but this is going to give us a cool effect. First, I guess we need some partials. Then I guess we need some clusters. And I guess we need some density. And then we can play with the position and we can hear what it'll do. Let's give ourselves more partials up here to work with. So now again, because we've moved the position, much like the tilt offset, this is going to preserve our fundamental and give us all our wacky and harmonic stuff up on top, so that this can still be more musical than just clanging on a piece of metal. Now, I said that density was my favorite. I like it around 99.5%. So like the closer it gets to when it gets to 100, we've got a mostly tonal sound again. When it's just a little off, there's a lot of beating and weirdness going on. Okay, I'm gonna dial back the weirdness a little and try to make a musical or at least useful sound out of this. It's gonna be some sort of a broken machine. So I'm gonna start, if I look at the density, I like the sound of modulating that density, but I didn't like the LFO just going back and forth on it. So I'm going to go over to random 2, slow it down, and its retrigger source is going to be poly keyboard because I want different randoms going on with different notes. And I'm going to use that to modulate the density. It's maybe a little too slow. Modulate it a little bit more. So our broken machine is going to be this big and very complicated thing. And it's got lots of motors in it running it. Motors that need oil running at different speeds. And none of them are totally consistent because it really needs servicing. I'm going to get rid of my modulation, at least for the moment, on the morph here. Maybe I want it more over here. And I want it a little less harsh. Bring the cutoff down here, and I'm going to add some envelope to it. I'll use envelope 2. add some velocity control to the amount of this cutoff. And also some amplitude velocity. Check this position again. It does sound out of tune in some places. As a result of modulating that density. I'm going to live with that. I think I did that on purpose, and that's what I want. I'm going to play a little bit with this tilt and tilt offset. That's almost getting nice there. Do we want that? We need some more release. I always want more release. Maybe not so much sustain though. So I want to morph this to make it more aggressive, but I want this gentle sound to remain available to us. I'm not going to use the mod wheel to do this, the mod wheel / pedal to do this time. Instead, I'm going to use a macro. So I'll use macro 2. And let's see, it was the tilt and the tilt offset that were really making the difference here. Now I have a knob that I should be able to control this with. Let's add some offset to this. Change the density. maybe play with the morph. No, it's good where it is. Let's add some filter cutoff though. Now we'll just have a much more aggressive sound over here. And now I should be able to morph right back to the gentle sound. And now I have a variety of sounds in between. I'm going to give us a little bit of vibrato because I like that. And the vibrato is also going to be modulated by the random that we used. Okay. Now that vibrato will wobble a little bit. What effect do I want on this? I'm not going to use shimmer this time. I refuse. I promise. I'm just going to stick with the reverb, but I'm going to make it a lot more of it. I do like this better in the gentle area. So it's like a kind of sad, broken, humble, gentle, nice, kind, warm and cozy, fuzzy and soft machine. But that is still broken. If we do just hold down the note, we can get some nice, this is 3 notes, so we have this drone here, and the various modulations. Each note has its own random that's doing the speed of the vibrato and whatever it was we did with the other thing. So we can make some nice droning chords here. I liked that sound. I'm going to end there. Remember to save your patch, and I'll see you next time.